Hi everyone, I'm Daniel from QNAP, and I'm here to talk about QVR Pro, our new surveillance solution for QNAP. And I think you're going to find that it's a pretty substantial improvement over Surveillance Station. I'm also going to do a live demo. But first, I just want to get into a little bit about the history with surveillance with QNAP. In 2010, we had our VioStore systems. These were systems dedicated just for surveillance. That's pretty much all that they did. But in 2012, we came out with Surveillance Station, which allowed you to run surveillance on your NAS. And you could still use your NAS as a NAS at the same time as you used it for surveillance. Now we have QVR Pro, which has a smoother, more intuitive GUI. A more attractive licensing model means that it's more affordable for most people. And it's open, software defined, so that if you already have a surveillance system, it's easier to incorporate QVR Pro into your surveillance system than it is with Surveillance Station. The QVR Pro platform has four important parts. QVR Pro will run on your NAS. It has the camera management, API, App Center, recording space, all kinds of things like that. We also have QVR Center for incorporating the cameras from multiple units into one system, and that will also run on your NAS. We have QVR Client to run on your computer, phone, whatever, and that's for doing either live view or playback to view your recordings or just to view your cameras. And we have QVR Guard. QVR Guard is like our high availability failover option, so that it runs on a different NAS. And this way, if your NAS goes down, the other NAS will just take over. Recordings continue, you can keep doing live playback, everything just keeps functioning smoothly. So what is it that's so great about QVR Pro? Well, there's a number of things. It's available on most of our systems, so you have a wide variety of hardware to choose from. Just choose what NAS you want for the cameras that you need. And we have way more powerful features. We have really a wonderful client. It's a wonderful feature with QVR Pro, and just more features I'll get into later. And we have pretty powerful storage management options. So you have a lot more control, a lot more flexibility with QVR Pro on how you record, how you store. What cameras do you want to record to what RAID groups? Well, I'll get more into that later, but a huge amount of flexibility, a huge amount of control over how you store and record your cameras. QVR Pro is great for long-term archiving because it runs on our NAS. With our NAS, it's very easy to expand the storage. You can do USB expansions, you can do Thunderbolt expansion units, SAS expansion units, and with Virtual JBOD, you can let one NAS share its storage with another NAS. So there's so many ways to just increase your storage, which makes QVR Pro great for even long-term archiving. And it has a more cost-effective licensing model, so that for most people it should be more affordable. And finally, we have a package system for adding new cameras. And this is important because with Surveillance Station, when new cameras come out, in order for them to be added, made compatible, you have to wait for the next version of Surveillance Station. But with QVR Pro, we have a package center, so that when new cameras come out, we can just put the package on the package center. You can download it so that the camera is compatible, and you don't actually have to wait for the next version of QVR Pro. So hopefully we should get cameras compatible more quickly this way. So in installing QVR Pro is pretty simple. There's four steps. Download and install the QVR Pro app from our App Center. Configure your recording storage space. Set up your IP cameras, and install the QVR Pro Client on whatever devices you want to view your cameras from. So this is a picture of what our QVR Pro Client looks like. I think you'll find this to be a substantial increase over the client with Surveillance Station. So right here we have the cameras that are just kind of available. We also have our emaps here, which you can view. So over here, you can see 3 of these cameras have been dragged and dropped so that you can view them right here. And we've dragged an EMAP over here. We have here our event notification center. The most common event, it would be motion, but you have multiple events you can choose. And so this way, maybe if motion happens, it just pops up right here. So it brings your attention to it, you immediately see it. We have here our timeline. You could click on any camera and just click anywhere in the timeline to view the footage just from any time you want. We have a little toolbar up here. So this is a big improvement over Surveillance Station, because with Surveillance Station, you couldn't do live view and playback in the same window. You had to do one for each. But in QVR Pro, just with any camera, you can just click on the camera and either do live view or click anywhere in the timeline. So maybe some cameras live view, some cameras playback, at the same time have your EMAP. Another great thing about QVR Pro Client is that you're not stuck with a square window for live view or playback. You can adjust the size and shape of the window to optimize it for whatever camera you're using. So you see with this first camera is actually multiple cameras at different angles to give a very wide view. So you can see with this first picture, we've made a very wide, a very short but very wide camera view so that it's not distorted, even with this very wide angle camera option. So we have three different very wide angle views. We also have a de-warp feature. So here you see a picture of a fisheye camera. Fisheye cameras tend to give a pretty distorted view, but right next to it, we've made a de-warped picture from that fisheye camera to make it much easier for you to look at. And also, even for a normal camera, you can just kind of highlight a space of that, like a little section of that, and magnify it over here. And so we have just a lot of great playback features just to make sure that your playback is clear, not distorted. You have a lot of flexibility, a lot of options there. For an event notification, when an event happens, not only does it show up on this little event notification board, but the camera, if it's already up for you to view, the camera will flash red. And the EMAP will actually show you where the event is, so you kind of know what you are looking at. So now it's time for the live view. So here's a live demo of our QVR Pro client. And you see from here, I can either do QVR Pro or QVR Center. I'll go more into QVR Center later, but you can view either from QVR Pro Client. So I'll just do a new window. So here I can kind of drag and drop whatever cameras I want. And I can now optimize. So first, to show about optimization, I'm going to drag this down here. See, this is a pretty distorted view here. It's a more wide angle camera. So I'm going to make it wider. And now it's less distorted, but actually it should probably be even wider than that. Let's see. So now it's not really distorted anymore. Let's put this down here so things get bigger. Well, actually, things won't get bigger because it's wide view here. Now I'm going to make a de-warped view on this one here. Just go here, click create a region de-warp, and drag it around, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So you see this image here is it's not distorted. Now let's make it bigger. So as you can see, you have a huge degree of flexibility in how you view your footage, and it just really helps with the different kind of cameras that you have. And something else I wanted to demonstrate, which I think is really neat, is playback from here. So I can just view this camera, anytime, and you see that the red sections are motion. It's events, but the events that we've set up are motion. So I can see that kind of during the day, there's more motion because this is a camera from our office. At nighttime, there's really not that much motion. And something else that's really neat here is how to export video from any of the cameras. So right here, just click and drag. And so I can now export that video, and I can choose all recordings or just events. I think commonly people might want to just go over all the events. And in advanced settings, this part I especially like. You can convert to MP4. So with Surveillance Station, the recordings were kind of our own format. But with QVR Pro, you can change the format to just something just almost anyone can view. So I click Start. And this happens actually fairly quickly because the way we render this as we change the format is hardware accelerated. So it makes things much quicker. So you see that the progress is quite good, considering how much footage I'm exporting right now. The events keep happening right now over here because this is our office and people are moving around. Exporting should be done soon. And it's done. And so now I can view it from my desktop, whatever. It's really that simple. So something else worth talking about is how we do our privilege settings. Because if you have a large system with many cameras, you're going to want multiple people with different privileges. Some people, maybe you want to only view the cameras. Other people, you want to be able to edit the cameras, add, remove cameras, things like that. So with QVR Pro, you can definitely manage privileges for different people, and that's very important for a large system. Something else I think very worth talking about is how we do recording our storage space, because you have so much flexibility here, and this is a huge improvement over Surveillance Station. Just some of the highlights, you can expand your recording space. You can dedicate space so other programs can't take it from you. You kind of reserve that space. We have, you can make a spare volume to make it more robust. If a volume goes down, the recording just continues. You have just many features, which I'm going to get into. So let's talk about dedicated storage space. So first of all, with Surveillance Station, you don't actually dedicate space. You can say I want to record storage here, but because you can't dedicate it, what that means is, let's say your other files get bigger, because there's other things on your NAS besides surveillance. So maybe you start just uploading a lot, back up a lot. If your other files get bigger, they can start taking away the space from Surveillance Station. But that's not the case with QVR Pro. With QVR Pro, if, for example, you choose, I want 3 terabytes of recording space, it allocates those 3 terabytes. It reserves it, so no other program is allowed to take that space. Something else, just with this is actually great about either Surveillance Station or QVR Pro, is that it runs on our NAS, and with our NAS, it's very easy to add space to that NAS through either a SAS expansion unit, USB, Thunderbolt, or through virtual JBOD. You can add expansion space. So it's great for just if you want to have lots of recording, archiving, whatever. And something really special I think about QVR Pro is how you can really specify what space each cameras are recorded to. So in this picture here, you see these 3 cameras here record to these 2 disks there. These 4 cameras record to these 2 disks, and these 6 cameras record to these 4 disks. So you can actually determine what RAID group you want to record each cameras to. And when you split up the RAID groups on some of our larger units and just kind of evenly have the cameras split up among the different RAID groups, you actually get more total bandwidth, and that allows you to have more cameras streaming at once. And something else that's pretty neat is that you can choose to have your event recordings go to a different space. So in this picture here, the event recordings go to SSDs. This is because sometimes events you'll record at a higher resolution, and so they're recording to SSDs to handle the higher resolution better. And we have spare volume to make the system a lot more robust. So since you have different RAID groups on your larger NAS units, you can say, I want the spare volume on this different RAID group. So let's say a couple hard drives die, or a hard drive dies and you get some bad blocks, something like that, to either lose a RAID group or go into degrade mode. Well, the recording can just continue. And this spare volume option just makes our system much more robust. And it's also worth mentioning that all of our recordings can be accessed from File Station. So it's really easy just to download the recordings. You can view the recordings. It's just all right there. It's not hidden or anything. So let's talk about just a few other useful features with QVR Pro. One really useful feature is how we manage the bandwidth. You might have noticed that almost every NAS we sell will have multiple LAN ports. Like this unit here has 4 gigabit LAN ports. It has 2 10 gigabit LAN ports built in. So you can just plug in all your LAN ports into your switch, and you can decide what cameras stream to the NAS through what LAN ports. And you don't even need to do link aggregation for this. For instance, even if you don't have a managed switch, you just have a normal, just cheap switch, this will still work. You can just plug all your LAN ports into the switch and just decide what cameras go through what ports. And if that port goes down, the system will automatically just move your cameras through the other ports that are available. So it's a pretty robust system as well. And it's great for just having lots of cameras and making use of the many ports on your NAS. Another feature that I like is that you can create a share link. So let's say that you have someone who you don't want them to have normal privileges to view all your cameras, but you want to give them the rights to view just one camera. You can create a share link, email it to someone to allow them to view that particular camera. And now let's get into QVR Center, because QVR Center is a wonderful feature we have now with QVR Pro. What's great about QVR Center is that you could, let's say you have, 6 different NAS units all running QVR Pro, each with, let's say, 12 different cameras on them. You can incorporate all those cameras from all those units all in one place in QVR Center to view them all. In fact, QVR Center can manage up to 128 QVR Pros. So I'm not saying 128 cameras, I'm saying 128 QVR Pros, each QVR Pro having lots of different cameras. So this allows you to have a huge amount of cameras in one place, in one system, easy to view. Another thing that's really great about QVR Center is that it is backwards compatible with BioStore and surveillance stations. What that means is if you already have a lot of cameras with surveillance station, you have a lot of BioStore systems, you can incorporate all of those into QVR Center. So what this means is not only is QVR Pro, in my opinion, a significant improvement over surveillance station, but QVR Pro makes surveillance station and BioStore better, because you can now view surveillance station and BioStore from QVR Center, and you can view QVR Center from our QVR Pro Client app. I do believe our client app for QVR Pro is a lot better than the client apps we use for surveillance station, and now you can view your surveillance station cameras from our QVR Pro Client app through through our QVR Center. So this is a picture of a QVR Center. Really, it's the same Pro Client app. You just click QVR Center, and it looks almost the same, but the difference is that you're going to see a lot more cameras available since it's all your cameras on QVR Center. QVR Center also has a customizable event board. So for example, you can kind of see what cameras or what locations have the most motion, things like that. And now let's talk about QVR Guard, because I think high availability failover is really important to some people who just want to always make sure they're always recording. So what QVR Guard does is it will copy. So you have QVR Pro on one NAS, but QVR Guard will copy all of your QVR Pro settings from on this other NAS. And because all your QVR Pro settings are copied, that means if this NAS goes down, this NAS can very easily take over because all the settings are also on this NAS. So so as long as things are running well, QVR Guard, the NAS with QVR Guard, just watches the NAS with QVR Pro. Just make sure everything's okay, but as soon as everything's not okay, it just takes over. So now these cameras record to this NAS instead, and everything just runs smoothly. You can still view your footage. Everything's fine. So now let's talk about our licensing model, because for a lot of people, affordability is very important. And for most people, that they'll find that QVR Pro is more affordable. So QVR Pro has two versions. It has the free version and the gold version. With the free version, you get 8 free camera licenses, and that's why it's more affordable for most people than Surveillance Station, because with Surveillance Station, maybe with some NAS you get 2 free licenses, some 4. There were some NAS you had 8 licenses with, but for a lot of people, they only had 2 or 4 free licenses with their NAS. Well, with QVR Pro, you get 8. Now, one limitation of QVR Pro is that our client app will only be able to view recordings back 14 days. But this does not mean that you can't view more than 14 days. It just means you can't do it from our client app. As I mentioned earlier, all of our recordings can be viewed from File Station. So from File Station, you can go back as far as you want. You want to go back 6 months. If you have the footage, fine. You can go back, you can view it, you can download it, whatever. But just from our client, you can only view it 14 days on our free version. The other limitation is that only 2 of the QVR Pro free versions can be added to our QVR Center. So if you want to have, many NAS just all incorporated into QVR Center, only 2 of those NAS would be the QVR free versions. Now, if you want more than 8 cameras, you need to get QVR Gold, because you can only add more licenses to QVR Gold. And so you can't just add more licenses to the free version. So instead, for $399, you buy QVR Gold. With QVR Gold, you get 16 cameras. So if you need like 14, 15 cameras, just buy QVR Gold, and then the 16 is more than enough. With the playback, there's no limitation. There's no 14-day limitation. And something else you get is a full functionality with Windows Active Directory and LDAP. So for some of our larger systems and our larger companies, that might be really important. And you can add up to 128 QVR Golds into our QVR Center. So here's just kind of an example of our licensing structure, what you might do. If you only need 8 cameras or less, just use QVR free version. If you need between 8 and 16 cameras, just get QVR Gold, that's all you need. But if you need more than 16 cameras, like let's say, for example, you need 19 cameras, just get QVR Gold and then buy an extra 3 licenses to get to the 19. And if you want even more, you can buy even more. You can get even 8-pack licensing packs to add to QVR Gold. So this here is a kind of a picture of our QVR Center, how it can work. So what you see here, we have 2 QVR free versions, QVR Pro free versions added to QVR Center. Then we have multiple QVR Golds added in. You could also add your Surveillance Station into here, your NVR into here. And with your Surveillance Station, with your NVR, you get to benefit from I think a much better client app. So, I mean, because of now QVR Pro and QVR Center, Surveillance Station got better, NVR got better, and this QVR Pro is wonderful. I think we are done. I want to say thank you for listening.